How are you doing tonight? Thanks for joining. We're going to do the day 6 of the ROKR submachine gun. I think it's been going pretty good so far. There have been a few checkpoints, and it seems like... How are you doing tonight? Oh, hold on. Seems like every time we get to one of those checkpoints, everything looks good. I've successfully done ROKR puzzles before, but the AK-47, which is probably the most similar ROKR puzzle to this one, I would say I did it about 90%, maybe 95%. It had some small issues, and I'm hoping we can do this one with no issues. Wouldn't that be nice? If we actually get this done. Wow, that camera's looking orange tonight. I'm not gonna fiddle with it live. Let me ask you something. Did you ever experience this where you think like you haven't brushed your teeth yet, and then you go to the bathroom or wherever you keep your toothbrush, and the toothbrush is like it's already wet? And then you kind of recall, like, actually, you know what? I did brush my teeth already. Have you ever had that experience when you think you didn't brush your teeth and then you realize that actually I did brush my teeth? So I had something like that this morning. I woke up and I had a little bit of a panic. And I thought, oh my goodness, I went to bed last night without doing my stream. So I, thought, okay, better late than never. I'm just going to log in now, do last night's stream this morning. I mean, usually I try to start them before midnight, but they almost always run past midnight. So it's not, the YouTube shows the timestamp of when it ends, not when it begins. So they usually end up showing the next day anyway. So I went to the computer, ready to do my stream, and then I saw that I'd already done it. And I thought about it for a second, and I thought, yeah, that's right. I did. I already did this stream last night. But I woke up thinking that I hadn't. And that's where we are with this stream. I've done it now. It's episode 435. That means I've done it 435 days in a row, and it's basically at the point where it's like brushing my teeth. Is that the mark of a high quality show? Maybe not. But the point is, it's basically just part of my routine at this point. It's not really like anything. All right. So segment 3, there it is. So one of the last things we did yesterday was this little piece. We put it into this little structure, and then this structure got put into the gun, and it's sort of held there by this, the spring. It's like wrapped around, I don't know what, this piece of wood. This piece of wood goes to this piece of wood. It's the same piece of wood. So it goes in there. It goes through the middle of the gun. It attaches to that spring. The spring is also attached at this end. So that's what kind of holds it in there. So that's where we stopped yesterday. So we tested this thing. We put it in here. We attached it to the spring. Now it's time to begin segment 3. Looks like we're working on a new section. Like kind of a new section. Basically, we're just going to push this off screen for a second. It's not off screen, but out of the working area, and we're going to start with some new pieces. It looks like the biggest of these new pieces is H6. But then we're also going to use some metal. 2 P13s, and then some other pieces of wood, B10, H3, and H2. Add that all up, you're looking at 6 pieces. So we're at segment 3, and we're going to go from 100 to 106 pieces. So let me start finding those pieces, and then we'll get to work. H board. Have we done much from the H board? We need 3 pieces from the H. I'm not sure we've taken anything from the H board yet. I don't even remember which board is the H board. Anyway, I'll find it. So another thing we've been talking about is fitness. And we talked about walking, yoga, weightlifting. There's more than that, though. There's internal sort of fitness. So we talked about, the walking and the weightlifting. They work your cardio. That's sort of internal fitness. And we talked about the yoga, squeezing your lymphatic system, and that's an important part of health. There's other muscles on the inside. I'm using one of them right now, or at least I'm trying to. I'm trying to speak from the diaphragm. That's an important muscle. If you can think of an opera singer projecting from sound from their body, it's sort of comes from their stomach. They're often big and fat, those opera singers, and they push out the air through their vocal cords and they shape their mouth. And this is all, if you can believe it, part of fitness. Shaping your mouth, that's part of your face muscles. And moving the air, controlling the air with your diaphragm, that's obviously this thick muscle in the interior of your body. But it's not just used for singing. Like, think about it. You're controlling the intake of air. Like, your lungs are filling because of what you're doing with your diaphragm. This is pretty important muscle. This is a very important muscle. In fact, I feel like since I started this stream, my health has improved. By the way, there's H6 right there. It's like a big piece. Yeah, it's kind of a big piece here. I don't know if what is this? Is that part of it? I think it is. That's just ink. Full auto. You can read that there. If you can read that, it says single here, full auto here. Are these like switches, like firing modes? And there's the H2, which is also part of this segment. Anyway, let's start popping out the pieces. So yeah, you're one of the ways that people, I might be misquoting here. You're going to have to verify this one. But I believe that one of the, when a person's on death row and they give them a lethal injection, one of them is a paralyzing agent. And you could probably imagine a lot of ways that would kill a person, but what it specifically does is it paralyzes their diaphragm. And that means they can no longer breathe. You can't breathe, I mean, I don't have to give you examples. It's a very important thing, breathing. By the way, H3 is like such a little nothing piece here. Look at this. H3. I believe it's just a spacer, but it kind of makes me wonder why we're only putting in one of them, not 2, because the B10 piece has 2 holes. Anyway, we'll find out. For now, I'm just collecting the pieces we'll put together in a minute. So yeah, talking loud, singing, speaking from the diaphragm. These are, if you can believe it or not, these are parts of fitness. These are things that a healthy person does. Again, I know that this fitness, frankly, when I was talking about the previous model that I did put together, I was talking about self-education. And I felt like more confident doing that one because everyone can educate themselves, or if they don't have that ability, they're not watching the stream in the first place. But not everybody is capable of doing every aspect of fitness, but they could be putting models together. So I don't mean anything if you can't do yoga. I don't mean anything if you can't do walking. I don't mean anything if you can't do opera singing. These are just things that, work for some people, but maybe you'll find something else that works for you. Everybody's different. And as I've said before, I'm not a doctor. I'm just giving my opinion. If you want to know exactly what's going to work for you and your situation, then you're going to have to talk to your doctor. Only your doctor knows your situation. I suppose you yourself know it, but in terms of giving advice, that's something the doctor can legally do. I can't. I can just give my opinion, and you decide what that's worth to you. All right, we still need to collect 2 P13s, which are probably going to be in a... Yeah, I found it. It's a bag here. In fact, it's an open bag, which means that we've used these before. P13s, they're like little screws, I think. You can see them in there. Let's get 2 of those out. And finally start building for the night. I watched a show on Bob Ross today. It was a Netflix documentary. I think it was just called Bob Ross Happy Little Accidents and something. And I can't even tell you how I ended up looking into Bob Ross. It's like a kind of a long, complicated story, which normally I would tell long, complicated stories, but it was kind of offensive. I'll tell it in a way that you probably can guess what I was thinking, but I can't confirm it. So anyway, what I was thinking is I was trying to think of examples of people doing things not for money, but, and when I say people, it's kind of more specific than that. I was trying to think of examples, some people, they help their family. Some people, let's start with themselves. Everybody helps themselves, right? You look out for number one. And then there's other people that help their family. Not everybody does. Not everybody helps their family, as crazy as that sounds. Not everybody helps their family, but most people help their family. And then it's how about your neighborhood? How about your community? How about, where does it go? How far? By the way, before we get into this, I'm trying to understand how to attach this piece. Let's take a close look. I think what happens is, right, that H3 circle is going to go inside of the hole on H. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. All right, so remember a minute ago we were saying, why are we putting the circle only on one side? That's not going to be even. Well, the way it's going to be even is that circle is going to go into this H2 piece. And now suddenly they're the same size. Now you might ask, well, why not just put it straight through this H2 piece? And my guess would be that it's going to move. But here's the problem. If it's going to move, it's this circle can move. That's nice. As soon as we put this screw in, that circle won't be able to move anymore. So I don't yet know why we're doing what we're doing, but it probably has some purpose. So while I was thinking of Bob Ross, oh, by the way, I found the answer already. This screw is going to go down in here. Sorry, it's a little bit off camera. One screw is going to go here, one screw is going to go here. So there is going to be some movement. So while I was thinking about Bob Ross, I was thinking about some people help themselves. Some people don't. You know, let's not assume that it's like nesting dolls. Maybe they're more like Venn diagrams, or like, is that even the right word? Overlapping circles. Basically, it's not as simple as saying, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not as simple as saying they care for themselves and then they care for themselves plus their family. There could be different relationships, but I'm going to talk about it in simplistic terms. By the way, I can't get this second screw in, so I'm going to put it in first, or at least at the same time as the circle, and that's probably going to be easier. Let's see. So to put it in simple terms, some people care. You know what? I think I have to screw it in there to make it work. Let's start screwing it in. So some people care only about themselves. Some people care only about their family. Some people care only about themselves, their family, and their extended family. And then it could be their neighborhood, their city, their country, and it's like whatever. It's like expanding sphere of influence. But as I said, it's not always just like that. Maybe someone cares about only bowlers because they're big into bowling, or maybe they care about only bowlers that are from their country because they're on let's say curlers in their country. Maybe they're on the international curling circuit, but they only care about the curlers from their country. So anyway, I'm not going to give you the Venn diagram of what I was trying to prove to myself. I'll just say that I think Bob Ross ended up not even being an example. But he was the one who came to mind as yeah, this guy did stuff. I mean, everyone helps themselves. I'm sure he got something out of doing those drawings, but I felt it was an example of someone who was contributing to anybody that would listen, like the community at large, like anyone in the world. He's not the only example, but this is for some reason the first one that I thought of. And then I looked up his Wikipedia page, and while I was looking it up, I thought, that guy's show sounds a lot like my show. I'm doing models. He was doing painting. So I watched the show today. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself to Bob Ross. He had iconic haircut. He was doing something that a lot of people wanted to do. I think, though, I can compare myself to myself, which is that during a certain generation of console gaming, the first one that had first-person shooters on consoles, I was right there in the thick of that action. When the first web pages came out, I was right there in the thick of that action. Now, models have been around forever. But if you look at some of the old models, the balsa wood airplanes and stuff, they're really not that great. What makes this era of models better, which is what we're looking at now, is two elements. One is computer-aided design, which we've had forever. But then the other is laser-guided cutting. So we're currently operating in this era where wooden models are something new and exciting. I know what you're thinking. Wooden models are old and boring. They are. This new generation is something different, and it needs some more attention. They need more people talking about them. Now, when I was talking about that era of console, I wasn't the only one. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one who's now noticing this golden era of models. And maybe I'm not even a prominent voice. Let's see how it goes. I don't really care. I'm not trying to be a prominent voice. I'm just doing something. So even though I've been in the thick of a few, notable parts of history, my goal is always just to do something. But if you're just doing something, you're probably going to accidentally do some stuff. It's like Forrest Gump. You're just doing what needs to be done. So someone who plans their whole life, and maybe they have billionaire parents, and they can guarantee that they're going to be successful at whatever, let's say musical albums. So they decide they want to be the Beatles. And, they use their money and influence and talent and time to become famous like the Beatles. By the way, I dropped a spring. And I don't know if there's an extra that's spring. So here's one I didn't drop. But I heard one hit the floor. I'm trying to find it and I can't. I found it. All right, I found the one that hit the floor. I was ready to sweep the floor with a magnet to find it. Anyway, I found it. So the drawback, so everyone assumes that it's great to be rich. You can do whatever you want. But the drawback to doing whatever you want is that you have to be right in what you choose to do. By the way, this curve doesn't fit, but maybe it's not supposed to. Maybe it's a trigger. It doesn't fit exactly. It's more dramatic if you look at it from this side. What's going on here? It doesn't stick out enough to be a trigger. It doesn't stick out enough to be a trigger. That's the top. But it doesn't go back far enough to fit in this hole. So I'm a little confused as to what's going on here. Hopefully everything's still good. So the problem with being able to do anything that you want is that you have to correctly identify what it is that you want to do. And one of the things you want to do, it's going to be relevant to the zeitgeist. So you might think that you want to be, let's say you decide you want to be a great author because you grew up enjoying books. And then while you're living your life, they invent movies. And suddenly now, there's no point to me. I don't want to say there's no point to being an author. If you enjoy being an author, be an author. But if your goal was to create the works that are celebrated by everyone else, that's not going to happen because now everyone's celebrating movie directors and you chose to be an author. So one of the positives of having to sing for your supper is you're sort of guaranteed that you're singing for something that people are willing to pay a supper for. Meaning if you force yourself into writing, but nobody's willing to pay you to write, there's probably no point for you doing it. But if someone is willing to pay for it, you're probably involved in something. So nobody's giving away FPS shooter video games right now, but they are giving away models. So nobody's paying me to make these videos, but they're giving me models. So there's something to it. There's something here that someone's willing to at least give me a free model for. So I'm not doing it for the free model, but I'm doing it because I feel like I'm in some way doing something that is currently needs to be done. That's sort of the way I look at it. By the way, let's just quickly talk about this page here. So P3 spring, 2 P12 screws, and a G14 piece of wood. So that's 4 pieces. We're up to 110 pieces. Okay. So models need to be put together. Someone's willing to give away models so that I'll put them together. So I'm doing something that someone feels should be done. How big will it get? I don't know. Let's see. I think there's something to it because, one of the problems with movies at a certain time was that you can buy the DVD and then you can just give it to someone else after you watch it, or you can trade it. And that's the problem with books as well. And that even could be the problem with Legos. That's not a problem with these wooden models, because there's nothing you can do with this after you built it. You can display it, you can paint it, you can use it as a gun, you can sell it assembled, but you can't sell that experience of putting it together. That's done. You did it, that's over. It can't be done anymore. Okay, so what they want us to do at this point is flip this over. And here's what's kind of weird. Remember where we just put that screw in there? I don't know, maybe you can see it. So we just put a screw in there from the other side. You can see you can see that screw there. Where it's black in the circle, that's the screw. Where it's white, that's empty. So there's also a little bit of taper. Can you see that taper there? So that taper is going to hold the spring. And that screw is going to play against the spring. So like when I pull this trigger back, it goes up. But when I put the spring in there, it's going to have tension pushing it down. So that kind of tells you which way this is going to go. I'm not sure if that's even correct. Right now, I'm wondering if I did this piece upside down, because they didn't really give us a good image of which way it's supposed to go. And I'm wondering if that piece is upside down right now. So I'm going to go back in the instructions to where we added that. Okay, so just here. And then here's a picture of it assembled. I'll tell you, I still can't, I still don't know which way this is supposed to go. I honestly don't know. I think I did it correct, but it's a little unclear. So anyway, we're going to put the spring inside there. So I'm going to put the screw all the way up at the bottom. I'm going to try to hold this spring, which is way too small for my fingers. You can't even see it. And I'm going to try to jam it in there. I feel like I'm just going to end up going in sideways, because I really can't get in there. Okay, I think I got it, but no, I didn't. Thought I had it, but oh, that might be it. I can't see it. All right, now I'm going to look at the monitor. All right, now I'm going to take it off screen and look with my eyes. Glasses off. Look up close with my eyes. Looking at it right up close to my eyes, I think it looks good. I'm not sure on that camera if you can see it. The ultimate test will be when we push the spring up and we see if it pushes it back down. It didn't. It did not push it back down. So that's it. It came out. It didn't work. All right, so we got to try again. Maybe, are there two sides to this thing? Does it look different on one side than on the other? I can't tell. All right, I'm going to look with my eyes. I cannot tell. But I'm going to try to put the spring in again. And hopefully it goes better this time. I'm wondering if the spring is supposed to go in like some different way. Let's look at the picture. Yeah, that's the way I'm putting it in. What is this showing? I have no idea what they're trying to show in that picture. I think they're just trying to show the spring in there. The spring goes in that little slot. So we're going to try again. I think I'm going to try to put it at the wooden end first. I dropped the spring. Put it at the wooden end first. And then push the... It's tricky. All right, I'm going to try to squeeze it. And then just put it straight in. Squeeze it first, put it straight in. Did I get it? I can't tell. I don't think so. That's sticking out. That's garbage. All right, let's redo it before we break it. Oh no, the bottom is caught. The wooden part is caught, which is good, but the screw half is not in, which is bad. Not sure if I can get it in there. All right, I'm going to take it off camera for a second, try to do it up close. I got it. That's the secret. Use your eyes. If you get it to the point where you can see it with your eyes, you should be able to do it. It's not totally in, though. I'm going to keep playing with this for a minute. All right. It seems to be a little bit slanted, but let's try it anyway. Bad news. When I pushed the trigger up, it went flying. It flew off to the right. I heard it hit something. So it could be on my desk. It could be lost forever. All right. We now have to hope that they gave us an extra piece, because I don't see the spring. So we're going to grab a new 5mm spring, and we're going to try again. And we're going to hope that we get it right this time, because if it goes flying again... Well, next time I test it, I'm going to put my hand in front to block it from going flying. But yeah, that was like pretty bad. It went off super speed. The only good news is I heard it hit something solid. Like, so if it hits something solid, it should ricochet. I just checked behind my desk and I didn't see it there. Like behind my chair. So it's probably on my desk somewhere, because I only heard it bounce once. I'll look again. I'm kind of worried that I'll forget to look at the end of the show, and then it'll just turn up like a week later or something. But anyway, let's try again to get a spring in there. Man, that spring really shot out. Maybe I pulled the trigger too hard. All right, let's get it down there. Let's try again. This time I tried to put it in both sides at once, which I don't even know if that's a real thing. But that's what I tried. Yeah, I'll tell you, it looks good. This is the best it's ever looked. Let me see if I can get you a look at this. Take a look at that spring. And not only is it caught at the top, but it's halfway wrapped around the screw at the bottom. I don't think we're going to do better than that. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to test it. Because if I test it again, it's going to go flying. Whereas at some point, this is going to get another board here that's going to trap it in that position. And then we can test it. In fact, this might even be the piece right here. No, it's not. This piece is going to go here. Anyway, at some point, something's going to go there. It's going to trap that screw in place. And then we're going to be happy. So there's what it looks like now. I think we can all agree this is the best it's looked in several attempts. We're not going to touch it. We're going to just plow ahead, hoping for the best. So next we're going to put this piece on here using these two screws. So, did I tell you about that experiment I was going to do? So, I wrote this book called Electromagnet. Like, I don't know, 10 years ago. It was a comic book. And one of the characters in it, he was named John Parr, and I'm John Rapp. So a lot of people thought that John Parr was John Rapp. It was kind of a coincidence. The book was based in Malta, and Valletta, Malta, which is the capital, is named after John Paraso di Valletta. And I actually named John Parr after that guy, John Paraso di Valletta. But I don't know. I don't know how I didn't notice how close John Parr was to John Rapp. There's also St. Elmo is on the, it's a star fort on the tip of Malta. And there's a song, St. Elmo's Fire, which is basically St. Elmo's Fire is people would sit on that fort and they would see that electrical plasma ball on the top of a ship, and it was called St. Elmo's Fire. And this book is about all these ships. So anyway, there's a song called St. Elmo's Fire, and the guy who sang it just happened to also be named John Parr, but with 2 R's. So it's kind of like crazy. It's like it was already crazy before I wrote my book. And then the fact that I wrote the book and that my name is John Rapp, it just makes it more crazy. But anyway, one of the features of this John Parr character was that whatever he would say, it would happen. And in the book, the reason that was because there was a conservatorship, and the conservatorship controlled trillions of dollars. It was rich beyond belief. And the sort of backstory, which I never got to, in the first book, they don't even confirm if it's true or not. And it's confirmed true in like the first chapter of the second book, but I haven't released the second book yet. I drew a lot of the images, but I didn't release it. So anyway, it's confirmed to be true. And then you get some of the backstory. So I'll just like tell you that now. Well, let me talk about the model we're building for a second, and then I'll start telling you. All right, so the previous piece, it had a spring and 2 screws, a spring, and a piece of wood. And that was 4 pieces. Did we count that? Yeah, we did. Okay, so now this new section, it has a big piece of wood, which is, what's the name of this piece of wood? No, it's the piece of wood we're already working with. Okay, so it's a bunch of screws, 2 P15s, then a couple of washers, 2 J2s, and then want the J2s waxed. Is that it? Just 4 pieces? 2 P15s, and 2 J2s. Don't ask me why the P15s are not labeled 2. It's just 2 arrows, whereas the J2s are labeled ×2. Anyway, it's 4 pieces. Okay, so the character John Parr, whatever he says, it happens, and it's speculated in the first book that it's a conservatorship, and then in the second book it's confirmed to be true, and you get the backstory, which is also guessable from the first book. And the backstory is that this character actually dies in book 1, but he was like he was a guy that had been around for thousands of years and collected a lot of money. And it's not confirmed like how many family members this guy had in book 1. So I'll tell you now, I'll give you some of the backstory. It's not only one. It's not only one line either. But what it is the guy designates the decision maker. So it's designated that there's these people who are operating the conservatorship. And these people are like thousands of companies. It's not like one accounting firm. It's like thousands of companies operating the conservatorship. And the person is picked. The person who picks who is the decision maker actually dies in the end of the first book. So that's like an open issue in the second book, which I'm not going to get into right now. Are these pieces the J2s that we're looking for? Yeah, they are. So here's the 2 J2s. So the P15s are screws. We've got 2 screws here. They're 10 millimeter screws. They were in a bag that said P15, so that's how I didn't have to like measure them with calipers. And then the J2s are just these kind of like spacers. We knocked these out on accident a couple of days ago. So that's why I had them like off to the side here. It's actually 4 of them. So they need to be waxed up. And then once they're waxed up, we're going to attach this piece to the weapon using the spacers and the screws. Waxing up circular pieces indicates movement. So anyway, conservatorship is operated by thousands of companies, but it's ultimately just one guy. And whenever this guy decides, that's what gets done. So in the first book, there's like weird things, like they're contesting it. Like they have this guy, like he clicks like on Facebook, and they accept that as like that he's approved this. But then someone else gets him to create, another item, and basically it becomes really confusing. The conservatorship is like at war with itself. I'm not going to talk about that book anymore. I'm now going to jump to real life. So in real life, no. I'm going to talk about the book one more second. So in the book, there's a building, and does anyone remember how I started on this topic? Because I know what I was going to say, but I don't remember what point I was going to tie together. But anyway, so this guy, character from the first book, they're two different characters. One character has a building, and the other character is, unbeknownst to himself, he's the main person in a conservatorship. And whatever he says, people make it happen. All right. Now this piece, this is kind of tricky here. We have to flip this over. All right. I almost messed up. So the side with the spring, where you can see the whole spring, that's the way you have it. And then this piece goes on this way, which means it's going to hang off a little bit. It's going to hang off the front because this is going to line up. The trigger is going to line up with the, I don't know, the trigger's already there. This sort of trigger guard is going to line up. And remember, we talked about the spring in here, how it's going to get pressed against something. So that's about to happen. Okay. So let's just start clicking these pieces on, and then we'll put the screws in, and hopefully nothing goes flying off while we're doing that. So one guy has a building. Other guy has the conservatorship. The guy with the conservatorship is the guy who matches my name. And one of the reasons I wrote this character into the book was I was already feeling this way 10 years ago. I almost thought, like, not that I was a conservatorship of some rich person, but I felt like I was like an unwilling participant in a psychological experiment to, you know how, like in Sweden, they'll give people universal basic income, and they'll like pick a bunch of people and they'll give them income just to see what they do with it. So I felt that I was maybe like a member of an experiment to simulate that the law of attraction was real. Like to A, tell them it's real, like in a movie like The Secret, and then make sure they watch it. And then B, start actually making the things that they say come true. If not true, report them on the news as if they did happen. So maybe you're not really going to change the world based on what this guy says or does, but you're going to simulate it. And then you're going to see what he does with the power. So that's what I kind of was thinking was going on. I later came up with a totally different idea, which is that 4-hour video that I haven't made yet that I sometimes talk about, which is going to be like basically how the universe works. So at first I thought I was being like experimented on. Then I came up with a sci-fi idea, fiction idea about this conservatorship. But what I basically settled on was that everyone has access to the same data stream, but you view it from different perspectives and you render different segments of the data and you interpret it. Basically I just came up with my own system, which I haven't explained to you yet. Although for a 10-second explanation, that was pretty good. So in this book, this guy has a building. And the building it tapers as it goes up. That's normal, right? But it tapers in a very specific way, and it has these snakes on it. So it tapers kind of like a snake climbing up a tree, rather than just like all around at once. It tapers, like the taper moves around the building. So anyway, there's a building like that in New York City right now, and it was built after my book came out. And I work in that building. And by the way, as I'm telling you this story, I remember why I started telling it. So that was actually one of the things. So even though I wrote the book already about things that I would think about would become reality, and then the book that I put into that, no, the building that I put into that book, they now built a building and I now work in that building. Like, I didn't change companies. My company, they just built that building and just moved in there. We have a big problem here. I just screwed this in before we put these circles in place. So I have to unscrew it and put the circles in place. It's too bad because I was going so good, right? But it really blows apart my idea. Or it doesn't blow it too far apart, but it showed me messing up, which actually kind of correlates with what I was saying, which is you have to know what you want. Like, it's one thing to be able to get anything you want. Now you have to decide what you want. So we were talking about that lady, or not lady, it could be a lady, it could be a male. We were talking about the rich person who decides to make themselves a pop star using their money and training and skills and time. But then the real question is, do they want to be a pop star? Or did I use the example of a writer? I think I used a writer as the example. And then the writer ends up not being the great job because the movies supplant them. So the biggest problem with, and I'm not inventing this idea either. It was like, if you heard any stories about a genie and a lamp, they were the same. It's like the person would make a wish and then the genie would like screw it up somehow. So this is kind of not a new concept, is that like, you know, be careful what you wish for, is the like expression that you might hear. Be careful what you wish for. That's basically the point of it. So I recently rethought about this idea. And I was thinking like that I was going to test it like in a meaningful way. So I thought like, let me test paying off my mortgage. You know, because if I'm going to do stuff like accidentally, so this actually, the building thing, it's not the first time that it happened. Like it's actually one of the original ideas to make me think about this law of attraction being true was the Ocean Breeze Athletic Complex on Staten Island. Maybe it's just coincidence, but I had been thinking about that like for a while. Like I'd been kind of like obsessed with that, but I didn't tell anyone. And then they went ahead and built it without telling me either. They just went and built it. So it's like, in terms of buildings, it's like 2 for 2. It's like I work in the building that I put in a book, and my kids go to track meets at a building that I was like dreaming about for years before it was built. So, at least in terms of buildings, I have a pretty good record. But I was thinking to test it with getting my mortgage paid off. So I thought like, but I wanted to be very careful with it, you know, because I keep thinking about that genie. You know, that genie, it's like if you wish that genie for money, they like, you know, it's like Newton's law. It's like nothing can be created or destroyed, only changed. So it's like, you ask the genie for money, and it's like, okay, they're going to get you money, but it's going to cost you more. It's that money's going to be, you're going to wish you hadn't asked for that money. So I was trying to be very careful in thinking of how to think this without making matters worse. And then Like the next day, someone suggested something to me, and the dollar amount that they suggested was basically, it's like, I don't want to get too specific on the details, but it was within 10% of what I owe on my mortgage. And the thing that they were saying was the thing that we were talking about. They were like, send a copy of your comic book to the guy who made that building, which, by the way, that building cost $2.7 billion to make. I don't know how much the architect got, but they were like, send your comic book to the architect. Tell him, I'm glad you liked this building you saw in this comic so much that you submit the plans. And the money they suggested it would be worth was like, or the money they suggested that they would probably like settle just to not even bother with having a court case was like within 10% of what I would need to pay the mortgage. But I think that that's not me. I think that I don't do that. Not only do I not do lawsuits, I also don't threaten lawsuits. It's just something I find like detestable about it. Like, I feel like if you have a problem with someone, just call them up and talk to them. Like, don't threaten a lawsuit. I don't know. That's how I feel. All right, we're almost at an hour, and we just made it to segment 4. So we ended segment 3 here. This is a QC. The model is back in one piece. It's all one piece at this point. And we're starting a new segment, and we're within 10 minutes of an hour. So unless we're going to do a double session tonight, I have to say, I'm John Rapp. This is Just Rest Your Eyes. Good night, and see you tomorrow.